You see, there's something most men don't understand. When a woman no longer values you, when she treats you like an option, not a priority, she assumes she holds all the power. She thinks your heart is still in her hand. But what she never expects is silence, is indifference, is a man who stops fighting. Let me show you what truly hurts her the most when she no longer values you, when you walk away quietly, without begging, without a dramatic farewell, without even the closure she expects. It sends a message louder than any argument or plea ever could. Most women are prepared for a scene. They expect a man who is hurt to try to fix things, to explain himself, to cry, to call, to double text, to fight for what was lost. But when you don't, when you choose absolute silence over confrontation, it disturbs her peace in a way she never saw coming. Because silence is not weakness, it is power restrained. It is a calm exit that echoes forever. She might check her phone, waiting for your name to appear. She might watch your stories, expecting something passive, aggressive, some indirect sign of regret. But when there's nothing, no reaction, no status updates, no attempts to reach out, she starts to question the very foundation of her assumptions. She begins to wonder if you ever cared at all, or worse, if your love was so real that the moment it was no longer respected, you simply removed it entirely. This lack of resistance, this total withdrawal, makes her confront something she tried to deny, your strength. Not the loud, masculine bravado, but the kind of strength that knows when to walk away. And the silence you offer is not just about absence. It's about reflection. It's about her being left alone with her thoughts, her guilt, her what-ifs. She replays moments in her head where she dismissed your effort, rolled her eyes at your vulnerability, took your consistency for granted. And now, when all of that is gone, it's not the silence that hurts. It's what the silence represents. It represents the end of a man who once saw value in her. A man who no longer sees a reason to explain himself, and the pain doesn't come instantly. At first, she may feel relieved, validated, even triumphant. She thinks you finally gave up, but days turn into weeks, and your silence becomes heavier. It grows in her mind like a storm cloud. Why didn't he react? Why didn't he fight for me? Was I never that important? Or did I underestimate the depth of a man who simply decided he deserved more? And here's the twist. She starts chasing a ghost. Not because she loves you now, but because she can't accept being irrelevant to someone she once believed needed her. She may reach out, subtly at first, a like, a story view, a casual message disguised as friendly curiosity, but when those attempts are met with continued silence, she begins to feel powerless, because the control she once had is gone. You're no longer emotionally available for her to manipulate. You've exited the game, and she's still trying to play, and that, right there, is the cut that bleeds the longest. Not that you walked away, but that you did it with dignity. That you never made her the villain, that you let her assumptions implode on their own. Walking away quietly is not just an action. It's a statement, a declaration that you will not stay where you're not valued. That your time, energy, and heart are sacred. And the woman who once thought you'd never leave now lives with the haunting realization that you not only left, but did so in a way that gave her no closure, no leverage, and no final word. She now sits with the echo of what she lost, a man who knew his worth the moment she forgot it. Hears what most women never anticipate, that the very man they belittled, the one they dismissed or categorized as average, the one they overlooked while chasing illusions and chaos, would eventually rise in silence. She assumed you were stuck. She assumed that once she withdrew her attention, you would collapse into a version of yourself that was incomplete without her presence. But what destroys her the most is when the exact opposite happens, when you don't spiral, when you don't chase, when you don't use her absence as an excuse to self-destruct, but instead use it as fuel to evolve. That evolution is the deepest wound to her pride, because it exposes just how wrong she was, not just about you, but about herself. She believed she had the upper hand, that you needed her approval, her presence, her validation to thrive. She thought you would orbit her like a loyal moon around a reckless planet, but instead she looks up and sees you breaking free from that orbit. She sees you going to the gym, leveling up your body, sharpening your mind, building your business, reconnecting with your purpose. She sees you dressing better, speaking more clearly, walking with confidence. She sees the change in your aura, and slowly it begins to sting. Because now you are becoming a version of yourself that she no longer qualifies for. And that is something her ego cannot handle. Because when she thought she left you broken, you were simply rebuilding. When she thought you were mourning, you were molding a better man, not for her, but for yourself, and eventually, for a woman who sees the value she never did. It's one thing to walk away. It's another thing to rise up after you've been discarded. But when you become more powerful, more respected, more magnetic in her absence, that asterisk is a pain no revenge can equal. She watches from a distance, maybe in silence, maybe in secret. She might see a post, hear from a friend, cross paths with you unexpectedly, and suddenly the memory of who you were is shattered by who you've become. And the man standing in front of her now, the one who exudes discipline, ambition, and peace, he no longer resembles the man she thought she had under control. You've changed, not out of spite, but out of necessity, and she has no access to this new version, because this version doesn't entertain disrespect. This version doesn't tolerate mixed signals. This version doesn't wait for someone to realize his value. This version of you attracts what you once chased. She underestimated you. She thought your love for her was your weakness, but now she realizes it was a gift she mishandled, and one she'll never receive again. Because this new chapter of your life doesn't include her. She wasn't written into your legacy. She was simply part of your transformation. And what hurts the most is not just that you left. It's that your success proves you were never the problem. You were the lesson. As you grow, she regresses. While you expand, she reflects. And what she sees in the mirror is a woman who had something rare, and let it go, not because it wasn't enough, but because she didn't recognize greatness in its rawest form. And now that greatness walks confidently past her, untouchable, unbothered, and unavailable. You've elevated yourself into a new league, one she can't talk her way into, one she can't manipulate, one she has no invitation to enter. She lost you, not because you changed, but because she didn't believe you ever could. That truth hits her in quiet moments, when she sees you laughing without her, when she watches others admire what she once dismissed, when she realizes that you don't even think of her anymore, not out of bitterness, but because you're simply too focused on the man you're becoming. That realization, that cold awakening, is where her pain begins. Because now you are no longer the man who hoped she would choose you. You are the man she's praying might look back, and the fact that you never will, that you've outgrown her entirely, is what breaks her the most. Women are emotionally complex, intuitive, and reactive. They can handle being hated. They can handle tears. They can even process anger, because all of those emotions still tie you to them. They know that when a man is mad, hurt, yelling, or crying, he still cares. There's still a cord connecting him to her. But when a man responds with absolute indifference, when there's no anger, no love, no passion, no bitterness, just cold silence and peace, that's what rattles a woman to her core. Because now she's not facing a man who's wounded. She's facing a man who has healed asterisk without asterisk her. You see, emotional indifference is not natural for most people, especially in relationships. Most women are used to being pursued, argued with, begged for another chance, or having their silence matched with desperation. So when she tries her usual tactics, the slow fade, the passive, aggressive withdrawal, the emotional manipulation, the blame shifting, she expects some kind of spark in return, a call, a text, an emotional breakdown. But when nothing comes, no messages, no subtle posts aimed at her, no visible struggle, she becomes confused, disoriented, because your peace doesn't make sense to her. It's not what she expected. And that asterisk is what begins to haunt her. Indifference is the ultimate power move. It says, I no longer need to convince you of my worth. I no longer care about being understood or chosen by you. It communicates that you've detached, not because you were defeated, but because you chose not to keep investing in someone who couldn't see you clearly. And that kind of detachment doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't seek revenge, it moves on. It doesn't post motivational quotes or cryptic messages on social media. It disappears into a new life where she no longer exists. And this quiet strength becomes unbearable for her. She might try to provoke you, subtle jabs, sudden friendliness, indirect posts, little tests to see if you still react. Because if you react, you still care. If you get angry, you're still emotionally involved. But when your silence is consistent, when her attempts go ignored, unnoticed, or simply unacknowledged, she realizes the game is over. The dynamic has shifted. She no longer holds the power she once had. And that is terrifying to a woman who once thought she could always get a reaction from you. And here's the part that hurts her the most. She can no longer tell whether you ever really loved her, or if she was simply an experience you walked away from without a scratch. Because now you're not showing signs of damage. You're showing signs of peace, of clarity. You're laughing with friends. You're focused on your goals. You're surrounded by people who value your presence. And in that space of calm where she thought there would be chaos, she's forced to wonder, did I even matter to him? That question, that uncertainty, becomes the torment she never saw coming. What she never realized is that indifference is earned. It's not immediate. It comes after the internal war is over, after you've processed the pain, after you've cried in silence, after you've questioned your own value, until you no longer do. It comes after you've realized that nothing you could have said or done would have changed her lack of appreciation, that no amount of love can convince someone who's determined not to see you clearly. And once you've accepted that, the silence comes naturally, not out of spite, but out of wisdom. She's not used to being ignored by someone who once adored her. That shift from being your center to being completely irrelevant is what crushes her pride. Because your indifference forces her to confront the truth that she was never irreplaceable. She was never the source of your strength. And now, stripped of the emotional power she once held, she's left looking in the mirror, trying to understand how she lost the attention of someone who once gave it so freely. And no matter how many times she replays the past, no matter how often she reaches out, she's met with the most painful realization of all. You've outgrown her, and you've done it without needing to say a single word. This. This is the blow to her soul that she never saw coming. When she sees you genuinely loved, deeply respected, and fully appreciated by another woman, it becomes a mirror she can't look away from. At first, she may pretend she doesn't care. She'll put on a brave face, laugh with her friends, and scroll past your pictures as if none of it stirs anything inside. But when she's alone, really alone, and she sees that another woman is giving you everything she refused to, everything she thought you didn't deserve, that's when the sting becomes unbearable. She remembers how you used to look at her, how your eyes held softness, how your hands were patient, how your voice lowered when you spoke to her. She remembers how you showed up, how you listened, how you tried again and again to make her feel safe and seen. And now another woman is the recipient of that same energy, but the difference, this woman doesn't reject it. She welcomes it. She embraces your heart instead of pushing it away. She speaks life into you, not confusion. She builds with you, not against you, and suddenly your love looks different, because it's being handled by someone who knows what to do with it. This new woman doesn't play games. She doesn't weaponize silence. She doesn't flirt with attention. She doesn't keep one foot in and one foot out. She commits. She reciprocates. She chooses you with clarity, and that clarity, that's what torments the woman who let you go, because now she sees everything she dismissed, everything she took for granted. She sees you smiling differently, speaking differently, living differently. You're glowing, not just because of this new woman, but because now your love is safe. It's valued, and that glow, that unshakable peace, that's something she never gave you. She realizes she had the chance to build this version of you beside you. She had the opportunity to be the one holding your hand through the storms and victories, but she chose control. She chose to test your loyalty instead of trusting it. She chose to challenge your love instead of accepting it. And now, another woman leaves the life she turned down, not because you upgraded out of spite, but because the woman who truly valued you inspired you to grow in ways your past could never handle. And now she sees it, in pictures, in whispers, in mutual friends saying, "He's doing really well." And every glimpse of your happiness feels like a reminder of what could have been if only she had chosen differently. If only she had seen you not as someone she could mold, control, or keep on standby, but as a man worthy of respect and admiration from the very beginning. The worst part, this isn't a rebound. This isn't a performance. This isn't you pretending to be happy. It's real. She can see it in your eyes, in the way you carry yourself, in how the new woman looks at you, with pride, with softness, with certainty. She can't recreate it. She can't compete with it, because the new woman isn't trying to win your love. She's simply matching it. And it's in those quiet moments, when her phone is silent, when her heart races at the sight of your progress, when she sits in the same places you once shared, she begins to feel the slow, cold ache of realization that the man she once thought would always be there has become someone else's king. That someone else now benefits from the emotional maturity she mocked, from the loyalty she ignored, from the patience she exhausted. You're not bitter, you're not flaunting, you're just free. And that freedom, the fact that your love didn't die, but simply redirected itself towards someone more deserving, that's what haunts her. Because in the end, she didn't just lose a man. She lost a future, a potential, a connection that could have flourished, had she only seen you for who you truly were. And now, she's on the outside looking and watching another woman live the life she once believed would always be hers. Not because you changed, but because someone else loved you right. She always assumed you needed her, that without her approval, without her presence, without her validation, you'd somehow crumble. She built a narrative in her mind that she was the center of your emotional universe, that you were orbiting her, waiting for the next opportunity to be pulled back into her gravity. She thought your love for her made you dependent, that your devotion meant you couldn't function fully without her being involved in your life, and that illusion gave her power. It gave her the ability to overlook you, to disregard your needs, to treat your consistency as weakness, because in her mind you needed her to feel whole. But when you walked away and didn't fall apart, when you distanced yourself without pleading for closure, when you chose growth instead of grief, something inside her started to break. Because the reality she constructed, that you would always be there, waiting, collapsed completely. You were not broken, you were not bitter, you were just asterisk done asterisk. You didn't try to explain, justify, or convince her of your worth anymore. You just exited, quietly and completely, and in doing so, you exposed the greatest truth of all: she was never a necessity. She was a choice, and when a man makes that kind of choice, when he decides to withdraw his love from someone who didn't honor it, it forces that woman to face the reflection she's been avoiding. She begins to remember all the moments you chose her, the times you supported her even when she was difficult, the days you stayed loyal despite the confusion she brought, the late nights when she was unsure and you gave her stability, the patience you extended when she pushed you away. You didn't need to, but you chose to. That was your strength. That was your offering, and now that offering is no longer on the table. You choosing her was a gift, but she didn't treat it that way. She treated it like an obligation, like something you owed her, and when someone believes they're owed your affection, they start to believe they can mistreat it without consequence. She thought your love was permanent, unconditional, no matter how much she withdrew, disrespected, or devalued it. She thought that just because you always came back, you always would, until you didn't, and when you stopped showing up. When you stopped texting, stopped calling, stopped checking in, stopped reacting. That's when it hit her, not like a sudden blow, but like a creeping realization, one that builds slowly in the back of her mind and tightens in her chest at unexpected moments, while scrolling through her phone, while passing by a place you used to go, while hearing your name in conversation. It's not that you disappeared. It's that you didn't need her anymore. And that loss of emotional leverage, that's what cuts her deepest. Because now she sees clearly, you never needed her presence to function. You didn't chase her out of weakness. You didn't stay because you were incapable of being alone. You stayed because you cared. Because you saw something in her that she didn't even see in herself. You chose to love her even when she was hard to love. And now, in your absence, she realizes the truth she was never ready to admit. You were rare. And worse, she treated something rare like it was common. She thinks about reaching out, but she hesitates, because she knows you're not the same man anymore. The version of you that would have replied immediately, that would have come running back, that would have tolerated the emotional roller coaster. He's gone, and what remains is a man who knows his worth so deeply, so unshakably, that even the person he once loved can no longer access him. Not because he's angry, but because he's grown, and she was left behind in that growth. Now she sits with the realization that you never needed her approval, that everything you gave her, your attention, your effort, your love, was a choice you made freely. And once you saw she didn't value it, you took it back, with grace, with silence, with power, and now she's haunted not by what you did, but by what she failed to see, that the love she once received wasn't something she could control. It was something she was blessed with, and now that blessing is gone, not lost, not wasted, but simply given to someone who knows how to protect it. There's a moment of reckoning that every manipulative or emotionally unavailable woman eventually faces. The moment when the games she once played so effortlessly no longer work. When her tactics, her patterns, her psychological plays that once kept you hooked, confused, and emotionally dependent, suddenly stop producing any reaction, and that moment doesn't just surprise her, it terrifies her. Because her control never came from love, it came from your emotional engagement, your frustration, your confusion, your desperate need to understand her mixed signals. Those were her tools, tools she sharpened with experience, tools she wielded with ease until you stopped responding. At first, she might not even notice. She'll pull back slightly, maybe delay a reply just to test you. Maybe she'll post something suggestive on social media, something she knows would usually get a rise out of you. Maybe she'll disappear for a day or two, assuming you'll chase. She expects the usual pattern, you questioning her, reaching out, asking what's wrong, trying to fix the invisible issue she created. But when your energy doesn't shift, when you don't engage, when you continue on with your life as though her absence is irrelevant, something in her begins to panic, not visibly, not immediately, but internally the fear sets in. Why isn't he reacting? Her ego starts to crack when she realizes she's no longer holding your mind hostage. The silence she once used as punishment now backfires. Because you don't break down under it anymore, you thrive in it. The jealousy traps she used to bait you into proving yourself fall flat, because you no longer feel the need to compete for a woman who made you feel like an option. The emotional roller coaster that once made you question your reality now seems childish. And the moment she senses that her power over your emotions is gone, she's faced with something she never anticipated: accountability. When her games no longer work, she has to confront the real reason she played them in the first place. Because deep down she never felt worthy of straightforward love. She never trusted herself enough to be emotionally honest, so she manipulated, she kept you guessing, she controlled you not with loyalty, but with confusion. And now, without your reactions, without your pursuit, without your emotional investment, she has nothing to feed on. The source of her power is gone, and that emptiness, that's what truly hurts her. You see, when a man reaches the point where her games no longer work, it's because he's finally stepped out of the fog. He's no longer trying to decode mixed messages. He's no longer tolerating hot and cold behavior. He's no longer losing sleep over someone who's emotionally inconsistent. He's detached, not from a place of bitterness, but from a place of understanding. He sees clearly now. He sees the patterns. He sees how he was used. And that clarity gives him the strength to do the one thing that dismantles every manipulation tactic ever created. Asterisk, he stops playing the game. Asterisk, you start ignoring the bait. You stop responding to the breadcrumbs. You don't check her stories. You don't reply immediately. You don't ask what's wrong when she pulls back. You don't compliment her when she tries to look extra good just for your attention. You stop showing up for someone who was never fully present. And in doing so, you flip the power dynamic on its head. She begins to feel the vacuum left behind when your energy is no longer available to her. She might try harder. She might send a risky text, post a thirst trap, bring up old memories, or pretend to be vulnerable just to draw you back in. But it's too late. You've tasted peace. You've seen how calm life becomes without emotional warfare. And no performance, no seduction, no fake vulnerability can make you forget what it felt like to be manipulated. You remember how she twisted your words, how she punished you with silence, how she praised you only when you served her ego, and now none of it moves you. What hurts her the most isn't just the loss of your attention, it's the loss of her illusion of control. Because as long as she could make you react, she could tell herself she mattered, but now her tricks are outdated. You're unresponsive, not because you're numb, but because you're done asterisk. And that realization, when she looks in the mirror and sees a woman whose power is no longer effective, is the wound she never anticipated, not because she lost a man, but because she lost the audience to her performance. Now you are a man who cannot be manipulated, cannot be guilted, cannot be swayed by charm or confusion. You see the game for what it is. And when a man gets to that level where peace is more important than passion, where clarity outweighs chemistry, where self-respect overrides attachment, that's when a woman who used to play games has no choice but to sit in the silence she once weaponized, and feel the emptiness of a role she can no longer perform. And so, in the end, it's not your absence that wounds her the most, it's what your absence represents. It represents the man she could have stood beside, but didn't value. It represents growth she never believed you were capable of. It represents peace that can't be disturbed, no matter what bait she throws your way. It represents a man who chose himself over someone who only saw his worth when he stopped showing up. You didn't leave with noise, revenge, or dramatic exits. You left with stillness, with dignity, with a kind of silence that echoes louder than any words. And now she has to live with the one thing that can't be fixed, the realization that she lost a man who was never weak. Just patient. And when his patience ran out, so did her chance.